Welcome to Alternative Dog Moms Podcast. I'm Kimberly Gauthier, the creator of Keep the Tail Wagging. For the past 9 years, I've been blogging about raw feeding, pet wellness, and life as a crazy dog mom. I've seen massive improvements in my dog's health since I started raising my dogs naturally, and I'm passionate about sharing my experience to help other pet parents.
I'm Erin Scott. For the past 9 years, I've been researching and learning everything I can about healing cancer, allergies, autoimmune, and mystery illnesses in both my dogs and myself, and I can't wait to share with you everything I've learned on this journey. As the Alternative Dog Moms, we're bringing you all the latest dog health news that we're following and sharing the tips, tricks, and resources we learn along the way. Now, let's get started. Hello, Kimberly.
Hello, Erin. Okay, so we're on a new platform, and I don't like not seeing the 1, 2, 3. I love that.
Yeah, I felt like I should maybe do a countdown, but that's the 100th time I've done that.
So how's it going? Oh, yes, I know we have a lot to discuss, but first off, happy 100th episode.
Happy 100.
I'm proud of us for keeping at it. It's funny because in the beginning, I don't know if we ever discussed this. In the beginning, it was so hard because I kept forgetting. And so I'd be driving around town and I'd get a text message from Erin going, "Are we recording today?" And I'm like, "Oh shit," flying back home to record. It took me forever. I don't know why. I had it on my phone as a reminder. I mean, it was insane. That's one thing I love about having this Samsung watch because my wrist buzzes too. And so I'm never late anymore, knock on wood. But now we're here 100 episodes later. Yes. And I know we have a lot to talk about, but I'm most curious about how Nino is doing.
Nino is doing pretty good.
That's good.
We've had a little bit of a roller coaster with his tummy, but we always have a little bit of a roller coaster with his tummy. So right now he's stable. He's good. He had gotten an upset stomach around 4th of July because we were doing lots of extra treats and things. And I think that did not sit well with him, but he's good now.
That's good. And you sent me a lovely picture of your new puppy. How's Nessie doing? She looks so buff. I mean, I was looking at this picture, like she looks like a supermodel of a bully. I mean, she's just standing there owning the space. I was just like, wow. And then I thought about I thought about your shoulder and back. It was like, oh boy.
Well, yes, you can see why I see the chiropractor so often. Yeah, it's been better since we haven't had as much rain lately, and we fixed the hole in our fence, so I don't need to keep her on the leash in the yard anymore, because that was what was really killing me, was she would go after a rabbit, and my shoulder would come along with her. I would tell Tim he was just going to see her running around the yard, like dragging my bloody stump of an arm behind her. Like, I literally thought she was going to rip it off my body a couple times, but when she can just go and do her patrols and I don't need to be attached to them, we all are much happier and less sore.
Are you guys still separating dogs?
Yes. Yeah. I think that's just our routine, you know. Yeah, I think that's just kind of going to be how it is.
Yeah. I think she'll settle in. I think, you know, it's funny because Apollo, when he first joined us, the first thing was, you know, he had crazy separation anxiety. So I put cameras all around the house and basically would spend my day at work just obsessively monitoring him, making sure he was okay. Then we took him to doggy daycare. And then they had cameras and I would sit at work obsessively monitoring, making sure he was okay. He put everything in his mouth. It was amazing what he got a hold to. I look at the cameras like, what does he have now? And I work about 45 minutes on a good traffic day from home. And so it's not like I can just pop home real quick. And Johan, he used to be a deputy. So if anything was wrong with the dogs, I could just call him and he would swing by the house. But he had retired. And he was running his own business, so he couldn't swing home either. Oh, so that was a pain. And then it was not getting along with Rodrigo. They both have they had very similar personalities. And it's crazy because since Rodrigo passed, Apollo has taken on a few of Rodrigo's habits. Like one is like if I'm petting him, one of his paws, if I stop, he'll just lift his paw up and down. It doesn't hit me. He just lifts his paw up and down. And he's never did that before. And that was something that Rodrigo did, but now it's something that Apollo does. But they didn't get along for a long time. But then one day they just did. They just never had any issues anymore. And the other thing was leaving the property. I mean, that was a big problem in the beginning. And then there was years of, and by years, I mean a few years of, since we were next to the Centennial Trail, if someone walked down the trail, he was going to go say hi. And then this year, he's just like, I'm good. And I'll be sitting outside with him and I'll see something and I'll just turn to him and go, nope, leave it. And he'll just sit next to me and watch. And sometimes when he's by himself, he'll just lay there in the grass and watch people walk by. If it's someone he knows, he will go. So I always have to keep an eye out, and I keep a leash with me. So if it's someone he knows, I'll put a leash on him and we'll go down to say hi. And the other problem is that it's only a couple of people he knows and they know him. So they'll say, oh my God, Apollo. And that's an invitation for him.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so it does get, it's weird, but it does just somehow, they all just work their way out of whatever and just settle into the routine that we need them to settle into.
So funny thing, I'll just give a little preview. We did an animal communicator session recently, and the primary thing around it was Nino and Nessie. And the communicator is somebody who I had as a guest on the Believe in Dog podcast. So Tim and I, afterwards, she, lets you record the session. We were listening back to it and we were talking, and there were some things that during the session, I could see Tim just sitting there like, this, no. But then when we went back and listened, we were like, oh. So I got her permission, and I'm going to do a very special episode of Believe in Dog podcast where I'm going to play what her audio is and then Tim and I's reaction to it.
Oh, nice.
So that we can kind of hash out what we learned and what we're doing since then in the last month or so. So yes, that'll be coming in August.
That's so cool. That's so amazing. That's so amazing. Yay.
So the big thing with Nessie is she had the ear infection.
Oh, and is she allowing you to put medicine in her ear?
So the good news is we're finished with the drops now. I hope, fingers crossed. Yeah, I think we touched on this a little bit when we talked to Ruth last week, but I was awakened by the sound one morning of Nessie's tags jingling repeatedly because she just kept shaking her head, and digging at the ear. And I was so fortunate. I contacted my vet. My vet was leaving the next day to go to England for 2 weeks. And so we were able to get in at the last minute before she was leaving. And the process of trying to swab Nessie's ear turned extremely stressful. And then our vet wanted to put the drops, the first round of drops in her ear. And that got ugly. And she had to be muzzled, which she really didn't like. And she was able to get the muzzle off. And it was a whole drama. So I was I kind of had a feeling if we can't even really trim her nails, I had a feeling this wasn't going to go well. So Tim took responsibility for most of the drops. The first couple days, we're not really sure how much, if any, was really getting in there. But after a couple days, she stopped reacting so harshly. So I think it was starting to be less painful and stuff. And then we actually got a pretty good system down. Now we were trying to change it up. We tried to change up the location in the house, the way that we would deliver the treat distractions. Sometimes we did licky mat, sometimes we did Kong, sometimes we did a different toy that had food in it. So we were trying to change it up so that she wasn't always oh, this is this thing again.
Yeah.
And we still were definitely getting some growls and some I don't like this body language, but we at least got through it all. We ended up doing the drops. She had said 7 to 10 days. I think we went like 2 weeks because, like I said, there was a couple times we're not even sure if they were even really getting in
Yeah.
there. So we were just trying to cover all our bases. So far so good right now. And I'm just praying to God. Like anytime she starts to scratch her hair, I'm like, oh God.
I know what you mean.
But it was definitely a combination of like a yeast and a bacteria. And, she's had these red feet the whole time. So I definitely think there's like a yeast thing going on. So, like,
Mhm.
we've changed up her herbs and we're changing up some of the stuff that we're doing with her, with our vet. And, we really need to and I said, with Penny, we had done the microbiome transplant and we did the like enema form of it. And I was like, we can't even get drops in this dog's ears. We're getting an enema in her. So anyway, we're fighting the yeast battle on all fronts with her. And I think, this is our fourth day of over 100-degree weather here. Like, I feel like this time of year, this weather, like sometimes it really kicks it up for these yeasty dogs.
Yeah. Yeah. Oof. I'm so lucky. I'm so very, very lucky because my dogs are doing really well. I
Yay.
mean, it's just like oh my gosh, one thing after the other, over the years. And I think that I've sort of caught a break and I'm hopefully vocalizing that doesn't
Jinx
make things
it.
shift in the wrong direction. But yeah, we've been doing pretty good. I mean, I think the only thing that we have is, Bella's fear issues, which, oh, I should grab it. So my friend Destiny, she posted, it's from Animal Necessity. It's called Seronin Vet, and it's a calming supplement. And so what is it? Supports healthy brain function, helps cope with external stressors, and maintains a relaxed disposition. And she said that, her dog, and she has a small reactive dog. And okay, so I know all dogs can be reactive, but it always blows me away when small, really cute dogs, because I can't quite remember I can picture her dog in my head, but I can't remember the breed. But it's a breed that I would, she doesn't do this, but you would see people like wearing a really fancy purse with the dog's head. So, just a really cutesy breed dog, that dog is reactive. But it has St. John's wort extract. I'm trying to read it with my eyesight. Flower heads, doesn't tell me what ones they are, unless it's the St. John's wort. But anyway, it has a bunch of great stuff, but I can't quite read it, and it's a lot. But vitamins, herbs, stuff like that. And it works. I've had Bella on it. I started it a few weeks before the 4th of July, and I give her one pill a day. It's less than what the dosage is for her size. It wants me to do one capsule in the morning and a half a capsule in the evening. So I just do one capsule, and on the 4th of July, I did 2 capsules. And she does really, really well with it.
That's wonderful.
And so she still is not a fan of bicycles. So she's not a fan. And Johan was riding around on the riding lawnmower the other day, and I had her outside, and she was just like, yeah, no, I don't like that. And so she just turned around and went back in the house. But she's not doing the submissive peeing. I mean, that kind of stopped a long time ago, but still, she would still have episodes. And so she's just doing a lot better. She still shows me that she's not a fan of things. I purchased a new standing desk, and she does not understand it. And
Oh.
she doesn't. But and so when I go to stand at it, for some reason, I don't know what she thinks is going to happen. Maybe she thinks it's going to fall over or something, but she will get up like she's going to leave the room. But now she's like, she's fine. She just comes right back and lays on the sofa next to it, and she's perfectly fine. So I think it's working.
So you did just remind me of Nino for a second because we had noticed that he's been more playful lately and he's been like running and kind of doing like being like he gets really excited and kind of like runs around, which he had been more low key about lately. And I
Mhm.
realized the difference that we did. I've been using the Myos
Yeah.
for several months now, but they finally got the larger containers of the Myos with the green lip mussel.
Yes. Isn't it
And
amazing?
so I started that one like within the last 2, 3 weeks. And like over the last 10 days, we've been like, oh, look at Nino go. And I really think that that was the change that we've made.
I have so many videos because I keep pulling out my camera. I don't get them all because I try not to just walk around, capturing content. I want to just live with my dogs. But there are so many times where I'm like, damn it, damn. And by the time I'm horrible because by the time I get my camera and I fumble with it and turn it on and do all the security measures to get into it
Yes.
and get to the camera and get to the video because I always start on camera. It's like, no, I need video and
Yes.
stuff, Zoe standing in front of me, like, what is wrong with you?
That's my
But
life.
she's running around the yard. She's playful, and it's so amazing because it started with her playing soccer with me, and that was like within the first few weeks of using the Myos. But now, after a few months, she's very active. It's like one morning I was taking because I take Apollo for a walk super early in the morning before it heats up. And one morning she was just like, I am going with you. And I usually don't like to take her because it's like, oh, well, we go for a long walk and, I worry about her joints and she's going to be so sore when we get home. She was just bouncing up and down and just like so excited. So I pulled out her harness. She's wiggled her head into the harness. And so I snapped it on and grabbed her leash and then Bella, it was so funny because Bella was like, no, I'm good. But by the time I got her harness on, Bella was like, okay, I'll come too. And so I took all three of them and they walked a long walk with me. It wasn't as long as my walks with Apollo alone, but we still went on probably a 2.5 mile walk. Apollo and I usually go on 4 to 5 miles and she was fine. She was kept up with us and was having a good walk and it was so great. So I really am a fan of that supplement. I wish I would have discovered it years ago. I'm giving it to all of my dogs. I just give less to Apollo and Bella because a container goes pretty fast.
I don't think Nessie needs it.
Yeah, yeah, I think Nessie's fine.
I can't imagine her
I
being
think it
any
might
buffer.
be, I think it might be do you a disservice. You're back a disservice if you
Yeah, I'll have to post that picture online.
I
But yeah,
know.
Tim sent that to me while I was sitting at the conference in Virginia this past weekend, and I'm like, wow, that's a good picture.
I know it's just sort of like, oh, you want to come into my house? I dare you. And it's just like she looks so buff. Like, yeah, you want to tangle with me? Because it's
I mean,
like,
there
yeah,
is
we can.
no fat on that dog.
And
Like
it's like
she
we
is.
can play, but I hope you can keep up with me. And it's just like,
Oh, that's something that came up in our communicator session is that we weren't playing rope with her enough. And when we
of
did
course not.
play, that we weren't like that we give up too easy and we weren't making her work for it.
Exactly. Exactly.
That actually came and so in the evenings now, Tim's been trying to make a point to go outside and play, and he can like spin her off the ground. I don't like when he does that, but he can with her holding onto the rope in her mouth.
Oh, wow. So, how was the event?
Oh my goodness. So I attended the More You Know Pet Wellness Summit in Williamsburg, Virginia this past weekend. What a great event. It was hosted by a local pet store called Nautical Dog. And Amanda is the woman who owns that store. And it was a well organized, like excellent event. I had drama getting there, but that wasn't their fault or anything. It's just that the drive from Baltimore was horrendous. It was like the one day that we've been in this drought, except for the
Mhm.
one day it rained was the day I was trying to drive down there. And so it took me over 5 hours to get there. And it takes me 5 hours to get to Albany for Dr. Kozier's event. And that's 100 miles farther away. So, yeah, just traffic was just awful, and it like torrentially rained like the last hour of my drive, which you're like, where am I going? Where is my exit? Anyway, it was very dramatic for me. And then on the Sunday morning, so the conference was all day Saturday. On Sunday morning, they were doing a meet and greet with some people, and I just decided to skip that. And I woke up, I never sleep well away from home. I woke up at 5 in the morning and I was like in the Starbucks drive-through heading to the highway at 5:45 a.m. and I pulled in my driveway before 9 a.m. because I was like so paranoid about getting stuck in traffic again. So I basically drove home in like the middle of the night. But the event itself was very well organized, very well attended. It was a nice venue. I wish there had been a little extra space to move around where the vendors were because you had like 100 and some people trying to mob the vendor tables, and I was like, oh dear God, I don't look too well in those tight squeezes and people bumping into me things.
Yeah.
But that's just my weird anxiety. So yes, it was a great. I saw Billy, I saw Charlie and Larry of Paul Dega, who they're officially back in the US now. Who else did I see? Well, of course, I saw Rodney and everybody on his team. And so I have to tell you, I have heard the name Dr. Katie Woodley before.
Mhm.
And I think I follow her online. I get her emails. I am like a huge fangirl of hers now. Like, she was the first speaker of the morning, and it was just fire. Everything she said. She actually sent like or put in our bags like a ditto. I don't know. That's what we called it in school, right? Like a
Mhm.
thing to like fill out while she was talking. And I took like so many pages of notes for her. One of my biggest takeaways, we've talked about this before, the broccoli sprouts. We've heard, right? Do the broccoli sprouts. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I bought everything to do broccoli sprouts. I have never broccoli sprouted. That's my goal now. That's what I need to do this weekend. She went through how the liver works. And we all know, oh, milk thistle is great for the liver, right? And that is great for stage 1 of the liver's detox system. But you need the broccoli sprouts for the stage 2 of the
Mm.
liver's detox system. And then the stage 3 is where the things like the binders come in, like the zeolite products. We talked about that Glacier Peak
Yeah.
formula. Like that's for stage 3. So it's like if you want to support all of the functions of the liver, you need all of these things. And so
Oh.
that was just fascinating to me. I had never learned it like that before. And
Yeah.
anyway, I was like mind blown. Um, she also talked about, and I don't even think I can decipher my notes here of like how she went through it all, but she was talking about how there's all these different tests on, testing kits on the market for pet parents, with the innovative pet labs. There's the animal biome, of course. And there's even more out there. The allergy test, the Nutriscan, the 5 strands, the Glacier Peak. And she really kind of went through like how she utilizes all of these and which situations they're helpful for. And that was like amazing to me. So I really loved that. Also, I didn't know that there is a test that you can do to test omega 3s and how much of that your dog is actually taking in. And so that was really interesting to me. And she said that even when you give omega 3 supplements, a lot of time they're still deficient because of like how much the body needs and depending what's all going on with their bodies. And so that was really fascinating to me. And she talked about like other tests that we can do through our vet and how to work with a vet who's kind of like, I don't know what all this crazy stuff is that
Mhm.
you're doing. But you know what? One of my other big takeaways from her was about how we need to take care of ourselves and, how our own self-care and emotional care and how oftentimes there's health issues that we have that get reflected in our pets and vice versa. And how if we're not focusing on like our own lives, our own emotional health, and our own self-care, like that we're actually not doing as good for our pets as we can. And
Yeah.
so I thought that was really interesting. Oh, and she also touched on the whole zoopharmacognosy and self-selecting
Oh,
things. And,
yeah. I love that.
like everything she was doing, I'm just like, oh my God, oh my God. Like she was just, that was like bam, 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 like way to start the day. Like loved her.
Yeah.
And then Billy talked, and it was really funny because I had recently had a conversation with Kate. So Kate owns the pet food store that I frequently shop at. She actually went to the conference also, so we got to hang out. And we were talking about how when Billy had been at previous companies, that you would often hear about dogs doing like the raw milk diet,
Mhm.
especially if they had inflammatory bowel disease or their allergies were acting up to things. And I said, I feel like I haven't heard anybody talk about that in a long time. Well, Billy's whole presentation was about raw milk
Oh, nice.
and about all the ways that he, nerds out about it, all the myths about raw milk and what you hear, and the things that you can get from goat milk and raw milk that you can't get through other ways, like lactoferrin. And so, anyway, that was really fascinating. And it wasn't something that I had heard talked about so in depth before.
Mhm.
And of course, Billy's just like had everybody laughing too. So, like, he started off like, "You're very lucky to be here with me today. I know." We were all
I could totally hear his voice too.
And then in the afternoon, we had Angela Ardolino. And oh, when you were in school, did you have the DARE program?
I believe that came after I left
Okay.
school.
Because I was like prime DARE generation.
Mhm.
And so that was like the logo of her presentation was drug abuse resistance education, and with the DARE program. And so this was really fascinating how she went through, all those inserts that pet parents don't get with drugs like Apoquel and
Mhm.
some of these most commonly prescribed drugs, and about, like it tells you if you give Apoquel long term, it can cause lymphoma, but they don't tell pet parents that. We don't get this information about that. And so she went through a lot of these different things and these like black box warnings that pet parents aren't advised about, especially things even just like the NSAIDs, like, like we take them over the counter and, we give them to our pets. And so that was, I wrote in my notes, Rage Against Apoquel, the Apoquel machine. And, and she talked about the pathways of cancer and how CBD and mushrooms help. And I just love that. And, and she said this, and I think it may have ruffled some feathers, but I appreciated it. Like, if we get nothing else from her talk today, it was, and, trigger warning if anybody has children around, don't fuck with Mother Nature. That was her big takeaway. And then, of course, we had Rodney and Karen, who were kind of like the headliners there. And it was really interesting. They kind of just started off talking about, and I wrote in my notes, why can't we all just get along? We're all like these 2.0 pet parents, and we're 2.0 pet parents because we want to ask why. Like, why should we be putting poisons and neurotoxins on our dogs? And why should we feed them kibble or things like that? And then they went through, if anybody has the Forever Dog Life, they went through what LIFE stands for, and they went through like how lifestyle, ideal microbiome, these different things, and diversifying the microbiome, the environment, stress, indoor air pollution, stop using flea ticks, how to do a DIY air filter. This is really cool with a fan. And I think some of that stuff's in the book too. But it was, fun to kind of see them talk about it. They talked about Bobby, and they talked about all of the controversy around Bobby and how something new might be coming down the pike with that. So that'll be interesting to keep watching headlines for. And then if people are in the Inside Scoop, the Rodney and Karen paid membership on Facebook, we actually did a town hall meeting that was being live streamed for Inside Scoop. And so they actually brought up all of the speakers and all of like the vendors. So like Rita Hogan was there, and the two crazy cat ladies were there, and Dr. Loudon was there. So even people who weren't speaking that day, they all came up, and people from the audience and people from online could ask questions, and they would
Mhm.
kind of take turns like answering or giving
Oh,
their
nice.
input. So that was a lot of fun. And people asked a lot of really good questions because I always cringe a little bit, like that somebody's gonna be like, "Well, my dog has this one really specific thing," and like it
Yeah.
wasn't that kind of stuff. It was mostly like people asking like really good general information questions, or going around and saying like, what's the one thing that each person on the panel wishes we were doing for our dogs, or like what's like the
Mhm.
one food that we're not giving to them that we should be, or so anyway, it was very interesting. And one of my favorite questions that somebody asked, and this is something I really hope that we hear more about. We've had this rise in like veterinary behaviorists, and there's a lot more drugs being prescribed to dogs for behavior issues. So dogs getting things like Prozac, or
Mhm.
dogs getting things that are supposed to help with like anxiety and things like this. And they were kind of like, what's up with that? How is that affecting our dogs? Is there any research about this? Like, what is the long-term damage of this? Because a lot of times you have people, just like your general vet, is kind of like giving doggy Xanax out, or, things like this. So anyway, that was something where it was kind of like, yeah, that's an area where we need to like have more research, talk more about, because these things are kind of be given out left and right now. That's like been a
Yeah.
trend lately. Oh, we talked some about like the humic and fulvic acid. Oh, that there's a real-time urine mold test that you can get if you're concerned
Mhm.
about your pet having mold exposure. So yeah, we talked about a lot of really cool things in that time. And yeah, like I said, sometimes I'm just like, oh God, when it's like question and answer time. But this was really amazing. Oh, somebody said, I just rescue, I do dog rescue, I foster a lot. Like, what are some of the priorities? These dogs come out of the shelter, they've gotten all these vaccines, they've gotten all these
Yeah.
chemical treatments. Like, what's like a protocol for that everybody kind of went around and gave answers on? So it was a lot of really cool
Yeah, that's a good question.
pre and post anesthesia, like preparation and detox was one of the questions, supporting dogs that have been spay neutered. So yeah, there was a lot of like really great things that people were asking, and that was a really fun part of it. So it was a great day. Like I said, it was like well organized. I got my great gift bag here. Everybody there got a copy of Forever Dog Life. So
Oh,
I now have
nice.
two copies. Um, we got like bandanas. Oh, this was one of my favorite things we got. Goodness gracious, Amy Renz was there. And so we got this food sample, and it's called Food in a Pinch. Woohoo! And so it's actually like these bars that are a complete meal.
Oh, what a great idea. You
And
could travel with that. That's a great idea.
exactly. So I thought those were great. And then they also made an announcement about who are going to be the speakers at this event next year. And I was still trying to recover from the traffic, like, oh God, can I go do this again? But then I heard the lineup and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have to do it again. So for next year, we will have Dr. Katie Kangas. She was there this year also as a vendor. We'll have Rita Hogan. Of course, she's going to have her book coming out next year. Susan Thixton, Amy Renz, who I just love, and Dr. Connor Brady.
Yay. I will be seeing him this fall. So I'm pretty excited. I'm hoping that I remember to pack my book and take
Yes.
it with me.
So yeah, I've already
That's,
got that one on the calendar for next year. So
yeah, that is so great. I love it. That sounds like a fun event. I'm really looking forward to the Feed Real Summit. And I hope I have a similar exciting breakdown when I come home from that.
ooh, another awesome sample that we got. Of course, I already got poop bag. We got green juju. We got some of the CBD dog health edibles. We had some real mushroom treats. But this was one I was excited about, was Crude Carnivores
Oh, yeah, I've heard
Roasted
of them.
Bison Broth.
Hmm.
And so we got like a whole little, what is this, like a 4 ounce sample of that. And they actually also gave us a booklet, and it had information. It wasn't just like all sponsors and advertisers. It actually had like cool information and recipes of like how to use different of the sample products and stuff.
Oh, what a
So
brilliant idea.
I think I'm going to make some gelatin bone broth gels for
Mhm.
Nino and Nessie with this because I was like,
Yeah.
oh, it's just bone broth and I have
I will be
gelatin powder.
making bone broth all day today. I just emptied out my freezer
Nice.
for
So
bones. So yay. Well, that sounds exciting.
it's always a good way to spend a weekend and
So you brought up, taking care of ourselves, and I posted something on social media recently. But so my back has been bothering me
yeah.
for a long time. I've had back pain, but it's always been just sort of like every now and then I just have to take it easy. My back hurts today, and it wasn't really a big deal. But starting in the beginning of May, it started amping up where I couldn't sit for long periods of time. I couldn't drive for long periods of time. And for me, long periods of time is like, for more than 30 minutes. I just being, if I went to go and get out of my car, even 15 minutes, when I went to go get out of my car, it was like my body locked up and I would have to take a break and then figure out how am I going to get out of my car with the least amount of pain. It was just insane. And I Googled it because that's what we do and figured that maybe it's my sciatica. Well, one day, just the pain was so bad that I called the doctor. So after about a month of resting, icing it, using a heating pad, stretching, doing all these different things, it wasn't going away. It was just getting worse. And I think the worst part was because I was actually stretching the nerve, which you're not supposed to do. But, damn that YouTube and those YouTube doctors that told me that. I called my doctor and went in. But by the time I couldn't get in for a couple of weeks. And so by the time I got to my doctor, I actually found a doctor that was like, don't stretch your sciatica nerve, stretch the opposite side of your body. So I started doing little things. I bought a standing desk, I started walking more and basically stopped eating or I was in the process of cutting out junk food and just cooking for myself. So by the time I walked into the doctor, the pain was still there, but it was manageable. So the way it was when I called, they would have probably ordered an MRI. But the way it was when I got there, they just did an X-ray, and I have a bulging disc in my back that's pushing on the nerve. And they said eventually it'll calm down and everything will go back and you'll be fine. And it is working. But what was interesting is they took my blood pressure. When I arrived, they took my blood pressure. The guy was concerned. So we went and got a different blood pressure thing and took it again, concerned, and was like, they're going to take your blood pressure again. And they took it again to see if it went down. And then tons of questions. And it's funny because I can tell something was wrong, but they were trying to be cool about it. So I was just like, so is it bad? And they're like, yep, it's bad. And so they were like, so we need you to check your blood pressure on a daily basis for the next couple of weeks because you're going to have to go on blood pressure medication. And I was like, or you can change your diet, start, exercising more. And they wanted me to go to acupuncture. And these are things that I was stunned to hear them talk about.
Yeah, I'm actually
It's
surprised.
just, that, and I recommend acupuncture. And I was just like, oh, okay, well, actually, what's funny is like a few days before my aunt had called me and was like, you need to go to acupuncture. That'll help you. And so I had already scheduled an appointment. So it was like at the end of the week, I was starting acupuncture. But so I chose to do all of those things. So I was already on the, working on my diet, but I really started, because we talked about this, touched on it a teeny bit on our last episode, where I talked about that I was reading ingredients. And there was this sausage at Costco that was so good. And it's a chicken sausage. So, okay, that could be healthier with bacon. Okay. And white cheddar cheese. Oh, okay. That's all sounds good. Reading the ingredients, and not so much the ingredients, but the nutrient panel. It basically was your daily dose of sodium in one sausage.
Yes.
And it was just like, and so I started reading more and more things and realized I basically can shop in the produce section and the meat section.
Yeah.
But anything else that's already been prepped for me is a treat. So my girlfriend, I wanted sweets, my girlfriend made pineapple upside down cakes, little ones. And of course, all ingredients and stuff, it wasn't anything packaged. And she's such a good cook. And I love them. And so I went up to her house and she gave me a little thing of them. So that's my treat. And I allow myself a couple of candies, which is like, because, I love my gummy bears. I'll never give them up. But for the most part, I'm cooking all the time. And my dogs are so confused because every time I go in the kitchen, it's usually to make their food.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here it's like they just ate, but I'm in there cooking so they all take positions. And it's like, no, this is not second dinner. This is now my meal. I only eat once a day and I consumed, and this is going to be shocking to some people, but for right now, this is what I need to do is I consume less than 1,000 calories a day. What's amazing is how easy it is to do that when you're just eating fresh food.
Yeah.
When you're
That's
eating
true.
processed food, it's really hard. But when you're eating fresh food, I mean, there are days where I only eat 500 calories in a day and I'm eating like a full-on meal. My potatoes that I grew, I made a meal with those and they were delicious. We had a cooler day, so I basically baked them all on that cool day instead of having the oven on this hot day. But it's been great. My blood pressure went back. Basically, my blood pressure was 2 points away from me being hospitalized. And so, yeah, that's the look that everyone had, but they were trying to be nice. And so they were like, we need to do this because basically this is no joke. And so my blood pressure did go down. It started going down pretty rapidly, like within the few days, it started going down. And their thing was that they thought my blood pressure was so high. I mean, it was lifestyle and diet, but it was mostly my pain. I was in such intense pain. And that's why they took it so seriously. Yeah, that my blood pressure had skyrocketed because I was in such intense pain. And so now it's like, stress levels, no. Anything that causes me stress, I just walk away from. It's not always easy. This past weekend was very stressful. And but diet surprisingly was easy. Since I have dogs, I always have a reason to get out and walk. And so that's easy. And, but it really, I've always known this, and I think I've mentioned it many times before, but it is astounding to me how many of the things I do for my dogs I can do for myself. So, yeah. I was already taking basically their supplements, but just the human version of them. I do take their CBD oil because I have the horse from CBD Dog Health. I have Earth Buddy Pet. But yeah, I take real mushroom supplements. I started taking more vitamin D because I read that, 85 or 87% of Black women are deficient in vitamin D, which I thought that was strange. Are we all just inside? It's just.
Yeah. Who did we talked to somebody about that? And
we
about
did.
how it's we don't eat the parts of meat, meat or whatever, like the organs and stuff that have the most of that in our diet.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're between our diet and everybody being inside all the time. Yeah, we get no vitamin D.
So it's just like, it's astounding. But so that was, it's interesting to me because I think that, we went through a period of time, and I still see this here and there where people take pride in the fact that, my dog eats better than I do, or my dog has a better lifestyle than I do. Or I've seen images where here's my dog's meal, here's my meal. And it's something like
ramen.
Yeah, exactly. Something completely unhealthy and horrible when you can have a simple basic meal, but it's fresh food and it's healthy. So, and I've been taking like the Ion gut support. My dogs have been too. I love that stuff. I am so in love with it. I'm working on a review of it, and everything that I've learned about it is just so exciting. I won't go into it now because I don't have my notes in front of me, but it's so exciting. Just, it's not the same as a probiotic. It doesn't take the place of a probiotic, but it has its own way of healing and detoxing and helping the body do what it needs to do. And already I've lost, I think the last I posted, it was 5 pounds. I've lost 6 pounds, within less than 2 weeks. I've had 2 acupuncture appointments. That stuff is magical.
Yes.
I love acupuncture, and it turns out my benefits, and they say this both times I went in, they said this. They were like, you have really good benefits. Do you know you don't have a max on how much you can just do
Oh, that's
acupuncture
awesome.
forever? Yeah. So I can just, it's just my copay and I can go in. So I go for, they did something to check my body to see where I was yin and yang wise. And then they're going to do acupuncture for 6 weeks, and then they're going to do it again to see what changed. And then we're going to do it again. And since I don't have a max, I'm just going to do acupuncture. I may not have to go weekly, but I can go. So I'm pretty excited. So
I love
yes,
acupuncture.
people take care of yourselves. It's
Yeah,
important
it's
because
really important.
I mean, just the idea that, when I think about the fact that, they were going to hospitalize me, that this was very, very serious. Who's going to take care of my dogs, especially the way I do? I mean, because I personally don't think anyone can. I mean, and it's like Johan gave up trying to help a long time ago. I try to be open, but it's just sort of like I'm vibrating with, you're doing everything wrong, not that way, and it's like I'm very particular, and I have them on a good system, and the system works, and can I write down every single thing that people need to do and trust that they'll do that? Or will my dogs be left to people who are just like, you can have kibble, you're fine.
Well, I had to, leave all my notes and my journal notes for Tim about things while I was away and remind him. And I got home Sunday morning. Like I said, I pulled in the driveway at like 8:55 a.m. And he's like, "Oh yeah, they haven't had breakfast yet." And I'm like, "What?" And and then I have to like watch him do it, and I'm like,
Yes, exactly. That way. I when I leave for, because I'm going to Super Zoo next month, I'll be gone all day Wednesday, all day Thursday, and I'm coming back Friday morning. And I blame you because originally, people listening, Erin was going to go, and it was like a last minute, like, okay, I'll go too, but I'm leaving Friday morning. So I was like, okay, I'll call and change my trip to leave Friday morning too. And that's not a bad idea. It actually is an excellent idea, because if I would have arrived Thursday night, it would have been crazy. Johan would have been in bed and the dogs would have gone crazy, and it would have just been just uncomfortable. So it's better that I leave Friday morning. So, but still, it's Erin's fault. And but I will make meals for the dogs for Wednesday and Thursday. Or yeah, Wednesday and Thursday. I'm going to have him feed the dogs once a day on those days, unless he wants to feed them twice a day. They don't, the supplements that can be mixed in easily, I'll mix in. Otherwise, I won't ask for him to do anything else. And that's it. Only thing I've asked, and this is a lot, please take the days off. Please take the days off so that you can just play with the dogs and
be
stuff.
there.
But
Yeah.
there's a good chance he won't. So I'll have my dog walker, who's out with Apollo right now. I'm just going to ask him to walk Apollo on those 2 days and then pop back in a second time to give the dogs a break and, hang out with them. And then that's it. And it's just sort of, but I've had to let it go. And then I just don't ask about it. And I don't think about it. If Johan has questions, he can text me, but he usually doesn't. But I have to let it go, because it's just like, yeah, otherwise I will spend the time just like, oh, did you remember to do this? And do you have to do that? You have to do this. The hardest was with Rodrigo, because he had to have specific things. And I had a chart on the
Yep.
fridge that had every dog, and this is what you need to do in the morning and the evening. And I think this is probably going to be the first year where I still will put something on the fridge, but it's just going to be feed the dogs, where it's just like, remember, and it's stupid things like, remember that if Bella starts shaking her head really hard, it means she has to go to the bathroom. That's her signal for I have to go poop. And you have to take him out for a potty break beforehand, and you need to make sure that Bella potties, because she will want to play. And so just let her bounce around for a while, but just wait until she settles down. Then she'll start sniffing, and then she'll potty, and then you can bring her inside. Otherwise, she will have to potty in the middle of the night, and she won't know to come to you to wake you up.
Yeah.
So it's just like, those are the type of things that I'll leave.
Oh, what day was it? There was a day. that it must have been the Monday after 4th of July weekend. Tim had taken that Monday off, and I went into the office. And so I had been talking to him on my way home, like, hey, I'm on the way. And I think I had to make a couple stops, and with traffic and everything, it took me like a little over an hour to get home. And I walk in the door, and Nino had pooped all over the living room.
Oh no.
And I was like, hey Tim, 'cause he's on what we call the other side, which is the bedroom side of the gate, with Nessie on that side. And I'm like, when's the last time you let the dogs out? And he's like, oh, I don't know, a little bit ago. I think it was right before I talked to you. Why? And I'm like, because Nino pooped all over the living room. And, Nino just gets so upset when something like that happens, and he like
Mhm.
hides, and he won't, and he also does this very funny thing where he kind of walks while he's pooping, and his poop
Yeah.
seems to come out in pieces. So like when I say it was like all over the living room, it's like spread like pieces all throughout the living room. And then Tim's like, oh, I don't know when this happened. And so anyway, that's what I was imagining when I was gone last weekend, is that, Tim's like gets sucked into playing his video game, and there's just like poop all over the house or something because he loses track of time. But anyway, at least when I came home, if there was, it had all been cleaned up.
Oh, yeah, but it looks like Apollo's coming back. The dogs are all looking out the window, wagging tails. It's funny because they don't want to go with him, but they love it when he leaves and love it when he comes back. Weird. I love dogs. So you told me something about weight loss drugs for dogs. And that cracks me up so hard because I mean, come on. It's interesting to me because in the email that you sent to me, you pointed out perfectly of the pharmaceutical industry and our food industry destroys us, but then says, but I have a pill for that. So we're going to make you fat, but I have a pill for that, rather than why don't you start walking around the block a little bit? I'm been watching the whole fiasco of Ozempic, and the fact that people who actually need Ozempic can't get their hands on it. And it's now touted as this celebrity weight loss drug where, granted, there are people who struggle with weight loss, but for someone who just wants to go from a size 6 to a size 2, you can do that through exercise and dieting, and it doesn't have to be a miserable experience. And it's just like the fact that this has jumped to the pet world should not surprise me. But what?
Yeah. So yeah, shout out to Amy Renz of Goodness Gracious. She was the one who had brought this to my attention and had made some great commentary about, breaking the cycle of feeding them toxins and then drugging them to, lose the weight that it caused. And yeah, it was really shocking to me that there is an association for pet obesity prevention.
Mhm.
Number one, that was just shocking to me that there's a whole organization about this. And that instead of talking about let's not feed toxic kibble,
Yeah.
instead they're talking about, oh, here's all these drug trials going on for essentially what are these Ozempic type drugs, for pets. And it was just utterly and completely shocking to me.
It is. I mean, it's just like there's so many things, feed your dog. Are you overfeeding? Are you free feeding? Does your dog get enough exercise? I mean, I know for a fact that, there are times when my dogs don't. I mean, I had to work up like with Apollo. Thankfully, I thought about the fact that I know I needed to work my way up to longer walks. And so Apollo did too. I didn't want to rush him into a 10-mile walk once I decided I needed to lose weight. And, technically he did too. And it literally took a couple of weeks for him to trim down. He put on his winter 15. It wasn't 15 pounds, but he put on some weight. What's interesting though is he went from 80 pounds to 81 pounds, but he still slimmed down. You can see his waist a lot better. It's better defined. He looks great. and he loves going on our walks. And, I was just like, well, I mean, especially in the wintertime, he had a dog walker. That came twice a week, and I would just take the dog. We live on 5 acres. I'll let them run around. But I mean, you ask yourself, does your dog really run around? I mean, my dogs do, but not to the extent that it's really counts as true daily exercise. It's more enrichment than it is exercise. And I have to take my dogs for exercise. If Bella doesn't get enough exercise, I get woken up in the middle of the night and with a toy in my face, and she's like, let's go. You didn't have time. Do you have time now? And so it's just sort of like I have to be, and since she doesn't like to walk on the trail, I have to be creative about our exercise. So we play with balls, or sometimes I load the dogs off and take them someplace that is Bella approved, and we play that way. Or like we have next month, we have our annual, it's called the Princess Litter birthday party, although there is also one prince in the litter, one brother, but all the puppies from her litter get together and we have a play date, and it's a full-on birthday party. But I can't count on that once a year, but I do thankfully have friends that have lots of dogs and live on land. And so I'll just call my friend and say, hey, can I come up? And she's like, yeah, sure. And it's funny because she's like, I'm working. And it's like, I'm not there for you. I'm just using your property. And she's like, oh, great. And so she doesn't have to worry about entertaining me. I just get up, she opens the door, her dogs come out, and we walk. And Bella gets exercise. And so does Zoe. Zoe, surprisingly, again, she keeps up with those walks. She does so well on those walks. But those are the type of things that we can do to keep weight off of our dogs. And I'm sure that there are the rare occasions, like similar to plant-based diets. I'm sure that there are the rare occasions when a dog needs to go on a plant-based diet temporarily, or just it's basically, I don't know, that's just what's going to work for this individual dog. But so I can see that for weight loss medication. I still would rather not, simply because it feels like with our dogs, it's just toxins in all the time. So if it's not the diet, then it's going to be the drugs and all these things that are supposed to make our dogs healthier and safer, we're giving to our dogs. And anyone who gives pushback, I see this with Angela Ardolino with her Apoquil post. There's always going to be a comment of, well, my dog has very, very bad allergies and I've tried everything. And I don't doubt them. However, I am curious about, like my friend Kathy, her dog was on Apoquil and when he was alive. And when she did the Yeasty Beast protocol by Adored Beast and her vet was so very supportive, and she did a few other things, she was able to decrease the amount of Apoquil that she was giving to her dog. She saw a definite benefit. And so I'm always curious about the people, like, if when you say your dog has to be on Apoquil, or if your dog has to have a weight loss medication, what else have you done before you went to this?
So, what's interesting about that with weight loss in particular, right? So Nino's weight had gone up some, and it turned out he had a thyroid issue, so as soon as he got on thyroid meds, within 2 months, he had slimmed way down, and it helped his mobility, it helped everything because he's an older guy now,
Mm-hmm.
And then with Penny, we noticed a time where she had a marked, like 6 to 7 pound weight increase that was seemingly out of the blue because nothing had changed in her diet or her activity level. And that was when we started really realizing that was kind of the start of like her microbiome being so off.
Mm-hmm.
And that, she had this was going back several years before she passed. She had this whole series of UTIs. She had been on antibiotics. And then it was before it even showed up in her skin, it showed up as her weight. Like, it was like her whole microbiome was off, that like it was making her put on weight. And, we were like cutting her food back and doing all these things, and it wasn't helping at all. And we tested her thyroid, and her thyroid was okay. But once we, and it took a little while, once we got the microbiome issue under control, did that whole fecal transplant thing, boom, the weight just fell off of her, like that. And so anyway, it's just really interesting. Yeah, like when you say, especially with the weight loss one in particular, right? Like
Yeah.
that one, it's like, look, I've had dogs that have gained weight and it's had nothing to do with like them being sedentary or with even the quality of their food, but it was
Mhm.
because there were these other things that weren't
Yeah.
right. And yeah, I mean, if you go to the traditional corner vet down the street or whatever, maybe you've done everything that they've said, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that you've done everything that's like out there.
Right. Right. I mean, it's really interesting to me because I mean, I get it, but it's it's interesting that there are people who will believe a 6 month study, and by people I mean, veterinarians who will follow a 6 month study or a 1 year study and a limited study, on a handful of dogs about something, but they absolutely do not believe in fresh food. They absolutely, I've seen posts where they're like, you know, these supplements that say that they'll do this, like I saw one where um she was anti or she I guess not anti she was anti-vaxxers, those of us who choose not to vaccinate our dogs, and she was like, this is such a problem, and she was like, and any supplement that tells you it protects your dogs from vaccines, that's not true. And I was just sort of like, don't you think you're shooting yourself in the foot? Because wouldn't you want to look into and promote a supplement that does help, that people believe helps their dogs? Because then people will maybe be more interested in vaccinating if they know that they can protect their dogs. And it's like, what about milk thistle doesn't help to strengthen the liver? And, and it was one of those where you will believe, despite the fact that, there's evidence clearly of dogs living shorter lives, and granted, this isn't just due to vaccines. I mean, it's so many things. It's our environment, it's vaccines, it's diet, it's the really poor breeding. I mean, there's so many things that are contributing to this, but I'm just so surprised that people are still so holding so tight to what the pharmaceutical companies say,
Yeah.
especially after the opioid epidemic. It's just sort of like it would
After,
just
and
seem,
not just the opioid epidemic, but every epidemic. There's the Vioxx, scandal. There's so many times, so many
yes.
times.
I mean, you maybe don't, absolutely jump onto the side of, becoming an anti-vaxxer, but, pump the brakes a little before you start recommending medications out the gate, because these aren't people who see dogs day in and day out. These aren't people who, you are. So it's just sort of like, why not slow the roll and just say, it's like, I don't want a pill or a shot that helps my dog lose weight. I want to
A
learn
healthy
how to
dog.
raise a healthier dog. That's all. Why can't we put more, and I guess the reason why is because, I mean, I'm not suggesting we feed lettuce to our dogs, but that's just a food that comes to mind. There's no money in lettuce. There's no money in telling people to feed fresh food. It's not that's why you don't see a bunch of rich influencers feeding raw. I mean, there's no money in this segment of the industry, because, once people start really taking the time to focus on, their dog's health and nutrition, suddenly they don't need to go to the vet as often. And, it's not everyone, but I think it's been my experience. I mean, I still go to the vet, but it's just, I go to the vet when my dogs are sick or injured, and so there's no money and no one's getting rich off of my dogs. And
Well, and that's
so,
what Angela Ardolino always says, right? That anything that's a pharmaceutical is based on something in nature, but you can't patent nature. So
mhm,
they come up with these, formulated versions that they can charge money for.
yeah. And they're not as good. I mean, that's just when it
Yeah,
comes
and there's
to,
all these side effects because it's synthetic and, like
mhm,
it's not the same molecules that you'll find in nature. And
It's disappointing because I know veterinarians love animals. I know someone doesn't go, I'm going to go to vet school because I'm going to get rich. I don't know any veterinarians driving around in luxury vehicles and flying around in private planes. I mean, it's not a lucrative industry, but it is interesting that, because I consider veterinarians to be scientists. And it's interesting to me that as scientists, they aren't questioning the
More.
science. Yeah, I would think that they would have more questions. And I mean, I know that a lot do, but, I feel like a lot don't. And it trickles down to dog owners because it's just, one of the things that I thought I had a great idea. I'm going to join normal dog loving groups and sneak my, agenda into the groups.
Oh, isn't it so
And
painful?
yeah, that lasted a week. That lasted a week. And so it's like it keeps us segregated and separated because we are in our own, bubble of people who get it. And it's very hard to, go out and talk to other people. I mean, I've gotten to the point where I rarely comment on posts. I mean, I'm trying to change that because I like talking about dogs, but I'm very careful about when I see something, especially something I disagree with. I saw someone talking about how great a vegan diet is for dogs, and and two people were going back and forth, and I was going to go in and just share my thoughts, but then I was just like, I'm too tired. I have high blood pressure, so I can't.
Well, I'm in a group of pit bull owners, and they just share funny things about their dogs, and the dogs are always issuing demerits to their incompetent staff. And it's shocking to me how often torn CCLs comes up. Like a dog will be complaining about having to have surgery or being on crate rest or something. Or, mast cell is common in pit bull dogs and other cancers. And it's just like, like this is not the venue for that. But I
Yeah.
just see it constantly, just
Mhm.
constantly.
Yeah. Speaking of that, not really that, but kind of. So I have a few people I follow that are just dog stuff. One is Levi the Husky on Instagram. I love that account so much. And this is a person who she does, I think I've mentioned her before, where she says, things I've done to upset my dog this week. And it's just she has this very dry tone and it's so hilarious. And her dog is so adorable. And she has a community where she's doing a course on social media. And I actually paid for her course and I'm going to do that because she's just so much fun. And there are quite a few other people who do I love huskies. I just absolutely love huskies. And so I follow a lot of huskies. But recently, for some stupid reason, I was like, this was so cute and so adorable. It's a guy who's in Seattle, it turns out, and he has two huskies. And he does these really funny videos. One of the huskies' name is Leia, and I only remember that because I love Star Wars. And it's such cute videos. And you go on down to the comments, and I'm just expecting to join this community of people who just love these two dogs. And just comment after comment, just nasty and negative and hateful. And I'm like, are these bots? Because how can this many people come to this very adorable video about huskies and be so freaking nasty? I just don't understand.
What are they complaining about?
Well, there was one there was one that really just bugged me, but I don't even remember what it was. The one that I saw this morning, he says that when he pulls out the hose, the dogs get super excited. He pulls out the hose because he was going to fill a weight for an umbrella. And the dogs were just bouncing all over the place. And he was like, the reason why they're doing this is because whenever I pull out the hose, they think it's time to play. And so he's filling the thing. And one of the huskies sticks his nose into the thing to lick at the water. And the other one, he does this game with the husky. And first comment, there's an easy way to handle that. Teach them weight and they can da 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 da. And then the next three comments were just like, similar training. And it's never like, hey, if you actually teach your dogs blah blah da 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 da, it's pretty aggressively worded. And so I added I love your page so much. Your huskies make me so happy. And I just feel like I have to offset the ugliness. Another one, I can't remember what the comments were, but this was the one that really shocked me. But I just do remember the video. And I'll see if I can find it because it is so freaking cute. His Leia likes the is it what is it? The DuckTales theme song.
Oh,
And he's like, "What's wrong, Leia? Do you want me to sing the DuckTales themes?" And so he starts singing the DuckTales theme song, and she goes bonkers. She's running up and down stairs, she's spinning around, she's bouncing around, and he stops the singing, and she freezes. And then he starts singing again, and she just goes crazy. It is the most adorable thing on the planet. How anyone can then leave, and this is stupid. Why would you even put? I mean, just like, you've got to be a bot, or you have
yeah.
got to be trolling for you just want to have as many people hate you as possible.
Yeah.
Or I don't understand the mindset of it. But
Either.
I have been dining out on that one video for days. Every time I think of it, I get this huge smile on my face. It cracked me up. By the time the song was over, I was singing along with it because I remember that cartoon. I mean, it was just
I had
anyway.
a similar type experience, around 4th of July. Our local sheriff's department had shared a graphic, and I think it may have even come from our local humane society, just, the usual, a lot of pets get lost on 4th of July and keep them inside, and, don't bring them out to the fireworks with you, they get scared. And some guy's like, I can't believe you're telling people this. I mean, you just put them in a crate and they're fine. I don't know why everybody has so many problems. And
My favorite is, oh, so basically you hate America. That's why you don't want us to have fireworks. Well, excuse me, but I'm
it
going to
was
do my.
basically like that all dogs should just be put in a crate and they're fine, and that, he doesn't understand why people have all these problems with these dogs and why there are dogs that don't like fireworks, or, and I was just like,
It's like, dude, if you had the solution, you would be a billionaire. You would literally be a billionaire. I mean, if you truly had the solution, you would shut up, patent it, and then come out with a whole a crate system, and here's your program. Take my course. I do private consultation. You would be a billionaire if you could solve dogs being afraid of fireworks. I mean, good Lord. And then you can translate it to just noise phobia and traveling. You would be a billionaire.
I said to Tim, I said, this is like a metaphor for not only what's wrong with social media, but also what's wrong in our country right now, which is that this guy is really fortunate that he has a dog that's not
Mhm.
scared of fireworks. And so therefore that must mean that everybody's dogs aren't
Yeah,
scared of
everyone's doing
fireworks.
something wrong.
And yeah, and anybody whose dog is scared of fireworks, it's like that is not a valid,
Yeah,
existence or
clearly
whatever.
you're doing something wrong.
And it was just like,
Yeah. My dogs did good on the fireworks. There was a moment where Bella, she was with me, and it was, because it got really heated, and she popped up, and then I didn't react. So she was and no one else was reacting. The other dogs were like, yeah, I'm tired. And so she settled down, and then we all slept through the fireworks. She did really good.
well, our relaxation protocol worked pretty well for Nino. And I had also been playing all their newswork games with them, throughout, I did it 2 different times throughout the day, once outside and once inside. And so that's why Nino's stomach got a little upset because he was getting all these extra treats and stuff. And I had even cut their dinner back a little bit, but it just, it was just all the variety, I guess. Just he had some funky poops for a couple days. But Nessie, despite all our best efforts, she still did not just relax about it. But we were at least able to keep her distracted by playing with her rope for 2 hours. The fireworks went on for over 2 hours in our neighborhood, and she did not get worn out until after 11 p.m. And she finally just laid on the floor and was like, okay, and slept at the end of it.
So now you know what she needs.
So I was like, all right, next year, twice the CBD. But as long as you're keeping her engaged with the rope, she's not freaking out about the fireworks. We had the music turned way up. They have those like music stations on the TV.
Mhm.
And so, I was like flipping around. And it's like, you're so random because I would have like party mix on, and then I would have like 90s hip hop, and then I would have like 80s rock, because it depended on what songs you played. And so I would be flipping all around, and he would come in and it would be like Tupac, and then he would come in again and it would be like Come On Eileen or something. And I was like, look, I'm diverse. All right? Like I have diverse music taste. And then he'd come on and it was like Pink or, Miley Cyrus or something, and it was like,
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and now it's over. It's just like, it's so over. I mean, every now and then someone does start setting off fireworks just randomly, but I feel like people have the last of them. So maybe the parents left. And so the kids out there like, I'm going to set these off. So, but yeah, my dogs did pretty good, and now it's over and we're better for it. So, all right.
you been binging anything good on TV?
Oh, yes. So I restarted Grey's Anatomy. So I'm back to season 1 again. Meredith is just about to find out that Derek is married, although they're separated. So that should be in a couple of episodes. We're a couple of episodes away from that reveal. And what else was I watching? Oh, God, I know I was watching something, and I finished The Boys on Amazon Prime. Well, I didn't finish it. I caught up with The Boys on Amazon Prime. It's so good. I mean, just such a good show. It's weird because there are shows on TV that are so bad, or movies that are just so bad. So when you see a show that's so good, it's just like, wow. I'm trying to watch not Game of Thrones, but House of Dragon, but it's so violent. This coming from someone who is obsessed with Game of Thrones. House of Dragon is so freaking violent that I can't watch it. So I watch a YouTuber his channel is called Heavy Spoilers, and he breaks down the show for me.
Oh, wow.
And so I watch his show, and I'm just such a wuss. But and this is like embarrassing. Really, I'm about to admit something about myself that I'm so ashamed of. When the dragons get hurt, I get so upset. And one of the dragons died, and I knew I definitely couldn't watch that episode, and they cut his head off. These are CG, and dragons don't exist. These are CG animals. And and if they did exist, they would eat me. They would burn me alive and then eat me. It wouldn't be Apollo cuddling up with me. They are scary, but it's ridiculous, and I have a problem with it. And yeah, I watched season 1 straight through, but season 2, I watched the first 2 episodes, and then after that, I was just like, okay, I need someone to explain it to me while I watch it with my eyes covered, basically.
We have such different TV taste. I've never seen Game of Thrones or House of Dragons or Grey's Anatomy.
What are you watching?
Well, I binged watched a show on Netflix over 4th of July weekend called Dairy Girls, and that's Derry.
The star, she's in Bridgerton.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the blonde. I think she's blonde in Dairy Girls too, but yeah, she's in Bridgerton.
So it is very funny. It takes place in Northern Ireland, the town of Derry in Northern Ireland in the 90s. And so, like, I'll watch anything set in the 90s, basically. And, it's just really interesting because it's mostly very funny, but it's so interesting sometimes to see different things that are like, oh, yeah, that did happen in the 90s, and that wasn't like a good thing. And,
Yeah.
and also, it's like set in this background of like the IRA and the bombings and, and just like Catholic, like the big deal between Catholics and Protestants, which, you're just like, what? But it was a very big deal at that time in that place. And so anyway, I've really enjoyed that show a lot. So
I will check that out. See, I am open to trying things that you like. Well, I did watch, it's a documentary on Hulu that was by Andrew McCarthy about the Brat Pack.
Oh, I want to watch that.
Oh, it was so much fun. Just it just brought me back. And it's funny because today, like Molly Ringwald condemns Breakfast Club, and she's like, there's problematic things about, and it's funny because back then that's not how we looked at it. Like we didn't
Right.
look at it like there's a lack of representation. Granted, the Long Duck Dong character was problematic. Um,
Yeah.
that was problematic. Um,
Yeah.
and it was one of those things where it started out as funny, but then eventually it just became uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And looking back at it now today, it's just like, oh.
And the whole thing with the girl and the like getting her drunk or drugged and like cutting her hair and putting her in the car
Yes.
with the guy and yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, it was just like there were so many things that, when we look back at it, but at the time, I mean, I didn't watch these movies and think, ooh, I'm going to go
Right,
do
right.
that. I mean, it just wasn't the way we looked at it. It was a movie. And,
Like any parties I went to were always in like a field somewhere. I never saw somebody's house getting trashed like that.
well, we had house parties, but the parents were there. They would just be like upstairs in a room, and neighbors, were warned and stuff. And so people, I mean, I'm sure things may have happened, but it wasn't really that big of a deal.
I
But,
had very unrealistic expectations of
yeah,
parties.
it just wasn't the same. But yeah, it was just like, watching, there were even like Revenge of the Nerds, but they didn't bring that up. But it was interesting about like where that term came from, the story behind it, and how it impacted their lives
Yeah.
in such a negative way. And then the people who were in the Brat Pack, and then the people who were Brat Pack adjacent. And so it was really kind of cool. And I thought it was a lot of fun. The guy, Andrew McCarthy, he interviewed the guy who came up with the term, and he was kind of like really serious about it. Like, like he had feelings about it. And those things that I didn't know. But it was fun. It was just the nostalgia of it all.
Yeah.
Not everyone came back. Molly Ringwald didn't come back. What is this? Judd Nelson didn't
Oh.
come back. Apparently he's like in hiding. Like no one can find, he's like very secluded and private and stuff. So people don't even know. I mean, he tried to reach out to him all through it, but he couldn't find him. But
Hmm.
there were a lot of other people, John Cryer. Like I didn't know that Pretty in Pink had an alternate ending.
I heard that. I've heard
That originally, and the audience hated it so much that they had to come back and refilm. And so that was it. I didn't know that. And yeah, so it was kind of cool.
So,
It was,
funny thing about John Cryer, I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts, and one of the ones that I love is called Truth and Justice. And it's one of the ones where like they do like one case and they'll go for a whole season just investigating that one case,
mhm.
And John Cryer is actually like been involved in that, and he would like they would do these like follow-up episodes where they'd come on and they would kind of try to get different people's like opinions, and people in the like if you're in the audience and you're listening and you have some sort of expertise that like blood splatter analysis or that kind
Mhm.
of stuff, like people would come on. Well, John Cryer was kind of like involved in this show and actually helped the guy who does this podcast get like a TV show and stuff, and he's like very big in this kind of like true crime wrongful conviction
Oh, how
world,
fun. I did not know that.
producing stuff. Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because it's like I don't really follow celebrities. I long for a time when celebrities were more mysterious and we didn't know about their
Yeah,
personal
kind of.
life,
Yeah,
about
yeah.
anything. I just don't like
There's
it.
more
But
mystique.
yeah, but I do follow Rob Lowe. I was going to say Chad Lowe. I do follow Rob Lowe because he and his sons
Yeah,
are
so they just are a
so
blast.
funny. They are so freaking funny. And I watch he had a show, I think it was on Hulu. And and he does these little sketches. And I mean, to me, he understands what social media is for. And he uses it appropriately. And so, because I've had to unfollow like Kevin Bacon and just so many people where it's like, you have a right to your opinion. Totally. I just don't care. I follow you because, Kevin Bacon, I loved Footloose so much. That's why I follow you, not because I'm interested in your personal opinion on anything.
Yeah,
I
I
just
get it.
want you to entertain me. I loved him because he and his wife and his daughter and their farm. That's why I followed him. But then all of a sudden, one day he gave his personal opinion on something, unfollow. And it's the same as when dog owners have a baby and they do that one image of the you know I'm going to be a big sister on their dog, and I'm like, oh, there we go.
Unfollow.
You lost me. Congratulations and all, but bye. So
All right. Well, happy 100.
happy 100th.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.